Okey diyoruz. En son ne oldu? Kvot işte Ville Sim'i stratejik konumlara koymuş. Bunlar işte Emrose çıkarken buna haber veriyorlar. Bir tane dal parçasını twitchliyorlar, böyle iteklettiriyorlar büyüyle. Kvot'un da bacağında böyle bir titreşim gibi bir şey oluyor. Ha, tamam. İşte şu an Emrose çıktı falan gibisinden mesaj alıyor. İşte geleceği zaman da mesaj verecekler falan. Gayet böyle güzel bir şekilde Quot'a gözcülük yapıyorlar. Quot da işte ikinci, üçüncü, dördüncü kaçıncı katta hatırlamıyorum. Camdan cama geçe geçe Quot'un kısmına geldi. Camı açtı. İki tane kilit çözdü ve iteklemek zorunda kaldı. En son içeri girdi. Ve biliyor ki Dena'nın yüzüğünü saklamadı. Çünkü değerli bir şey olduğundan çok onun böyle bir ne derler ona, yadigar değil. Anı gibisinden tut. Okey, birileri bağırıyor. Anı gibi, bir dakika. Neyse bulamadı ama sonra o esnada böyle boş yapası tuttu herhalde. Ne yaptı işte, hala sesleri geliyor. Emroz'un pantolonun dikişlerini gevşetti. Yok işte şöminenin bir şeyini kapattı falan. Salak salak böyle uğraşıyor. Neyse sonra işte birden cebindeki tekrar dal parçası kıpırdandı. Aa dedi, Emroz geri dönüyor. Niye bu kadar erken geri dönüyor falan. Sonra tam çıkmak için camı açmaya çalıştı. Açamadı ama bir baktı brass geçiyor böyle. Neydi? Copper değil, brass. Para copper artı brass'tan yapılıyordu. Copper büyüyü engelliyordu. Brass da başka bir şey. Neyse o brass'ı gördü. O brass'ı göresiye şeyi anladı. İşte hırsız alarmı gibi bir şey var. Emroz'un haberi olduğu için geri gelmiş ve mekana girmiş bile. Kendi dairesine gelmek üzere diyor. Ki Kvot camı bile açamıyor çünkü aynı hırsız alarmı camın açılmasını engelliyor. Baya böyle what the fuck durumunda kaldı. Sonra neyse bir tane kalem aldık. Emroz'un masasından işte kilidi açacak ama işte kalemin ucu kilidin içinde kaldı falan. Baya heyecanlı bir yerdeydik. Sonra hop birden elektrikler gitti. Video ondan kapandı diyorum. Yoksa devam edecektim. Tabii diyorum. Bir şey daha diyecektim. Düşünüp geliyorum. Okay, devam. A moment later, I heard a grating metallic noise as Ambrose attempted to unlock the door from his side, fumbling and cursing when he couldn't get his key to fit. Okay, bu cam için olmamış, bu kapı için olmuş. Kapının kilidin içinde işte kalemin ucunu kırıp Amrose'un dışarıdan kendi kapısına girebilmesini engellemiş. Very good. By that point, I was already back at the window, shining my lamp back and forth along the strip of brass and murmuring runes under my breath. It was simple enough. I could render it useless by scratching out a handful of connecting runes, then open the window and escape. I hurried back to the sitting room and snatched the letter opener off his desk. Knocking over the capped inkwell in my hurry, I was about I was just about to begin eliding runes and I realized how stupid that would be. Any petty thief could break into Amrose's rooms, but the number of people who knew enough sigilry to follow a ward was much lower. I might as well sign my name on his window frame. O kadar zekiyim ki çok zekice davranmamam lazım diyor. I took a moment to collect my thoughts, then returned the letter opener to the desk and replaced the ink well. I returned and examined the long brass strip more closely. Breaking something is simple, understanding it is harder. This is doubly true when you're confronted with the sounds of muted cursing from behind a door, accompanied by the click and rattle of someone trying to unjam a lock. Then the hallway went quiet, which was even more unnerving. I finally managed to puzzle out the sequence of words as I heard several sets of footsteps in the hall. I broke my mind into three pieces and focused my eye aloud as I pushed against the window. My hands and feet grew cold as I pulled heat from my body to counteract the warmth, trying not to panic as I heard a loud thump as something heavy struck the door. The window swung open and I scrambled backward over the sash and onto the roof as something struck the door again and I heard the sharp crack of splintering wood. I still could have made it away safely, but when I set my right foot down on the roof, I felt a clay tile crack under my weight. As my foot slid, I grabbed the window sill with both hands to steady myself. Then the wind gusted, catching the open window and flinging it toward my head. I brought up my arm to protect my face, and it struck my elbow instead, smashing one of the small panes of glass. The impact pushed me sideways onto my right foot, which slid the rest of the way out from underneath me. Then, since all my other options seemed to be exhausted, I decided it would be best if I fell off the roof. Acting on pure instinct, my hands scrabbled madly. I dislodged a few more clay tiles, then caught hold of the lip of the roof. My grip wasn't good, but it slowed and spun me so that I didn't land on my head or my back. Instead, I landed face down like a cat. Except a cat's legs are all the same length. I landed on my hands and knees. My hands made it stung, but my knees striking the cobblestones hurt as badly as anything I'd ever felt in my entire young life. Young life diyor, yaşlı hayatında daha da büyük acılar çekmiş, onu alttan alta belirtiyor. The pain was blinding, and I heard myself yap like a dog that's being kicked. A second later, a hail of heavy red roofing tiles fell around me, most shattered on the cobblestones, but one clipped the back of my head, while another caught me square on the elbow, making my entire forearm go numb. I didn't spare it a moment's thought. A broken arm would heal, but expulsion from the university would last a lifetime. I pulled my hood up and forced myself to my feet, using one hand to make sure the hood of my cloak stayed in place. I staggered a few steps until I was under the eaves of the golden pony, out of sight of the upstairs window. Then I was running. Eventually, I made my careful, limping way onto the rooftops and let myself into my room by the window. It was slow going, but I had little choice. I couldn't walk past everyone in the tap room, disheveled, limping, and generally looking as if I just fallen off a roof. Once I caught my breath and spent some time abusing myself for stereotypes of blinding idiocy, I took stock of my wounds. The good news was that I hadn't broken either of my legs, but I had splendid bruises blooming just below each knee. The tile that had grazed my head had left a lump, but hadn't cut me. And while my elbow throbbed with a dull ache, my hand was no longer numb. There was a knock at the door. I froze for a moment, then drew the birch twig from my pocket, muted a quick binding, and jerked it back and forth. I heard a startled noise from out in the hall, followed by William's low laugh. That's not funny, I heard Sim say. Let us in. I let them in. Simon sat on the edge of the bed, and William took the chair by the desk. I closed the door and sat on the other half of the bed. Even with all of us seated, the tiny room was crowded. We eyed each other soberly for a moment, then Simon spoke up. The perineum rose started a thief in his rooms tonight. Fellow jumped out the window rather than get caught. I gave a brief humorless laugh. Hardly. I was almost out when the window blew shut on me. I gestured awkwardly, knocked me off the roof. William let out a relieved sigh. I thought I botched the binding. I shook my head. I had plenty of warning. I just wasn't as careful as I should have been. Why was he back so early? Simon asked, looking at William. Did you hear anything when he came in? It probably occurred to him that my handwriting is not especially feminine, William said. He had wires on his windows, I said, probably linked to a ring or something he carries with him. They must have tipped him off as soon as I opened the window. Did you get it? William asked. I shook my head. Simon craned his neck to get a better look at my arm. Are you okay? I followed his eyes, but didn't see anything. And I tugged at my shirt. I noticed that it was stuck to the back of my arm. With all my other pains, I hadn't noticed it. Moving gingerly, I pulled my shirt up over my head. The above of the shirt was torn and speckled with blood. I cursed bitterly. I only owned 4 shirts and now this one was ruined. I tried to get a look at my injury demesi lazım. Şurada şu the yanlış bence. And quickly realized that you couldn't get a look at the back of your own elbow, no matter how much you wanted to. Eventually, I held it up for Simon's inspection. It's not much, he said, holding his fingers a little more than 2 inches apart. There is only one cut and it's hardly bleeding. The rest of it's just scraped off. It looks like you scudded hard against something. Clay tile from the roof fell on me, I said. Lucky Willem grunted. West could fall off a roof and end up with nothing more than a few scrapes. I got bruises on my knees the size of apples, I said. I'd be lucky if I can walk tomorrow. But deep down I knew he was right. The clay tile that had landed on my elbow could easily have broken my arm. The broken edges of the clay tiles were sometimes sharp as knives, so if it had hit me differently, it could have cut me down to the bone. I hate clay roofing tiles. But it could have been worse, Simon said briskly as he came to his feet. Let's go to the medical and get you patched up. Craven, no, William said. He can't go to the medical. They will be asking to see if anyone is hurt. Simon sat down again. Of course, he said, sounding vaguely disgusted with himself. I knew that. He looked me over. At least you're not hurt anywhere that people can see. I looked at Willem. You have a problem with blood, don't you? His expression grew slightly offended. I wouldn't say. His eyes darted to my elbow and his face grew a little pale despite his dark silverish complexion. His mouth made a thin line. Yes, fair enough, I started to cut my ruined shirt into strips of cloth. Congratulations, Sim. You've been promoted to field medic. I opened a drawer and brought out a hook needle and got iodine and a small pot of goose grease. Sim looked at the needle, then back at me, eyes wide. I gave him my best smile. It's easy. I'll talk you through it. I sat on the floor with my arm over my head while Simon washed, stitched, and bandaged my elbow. He surprised me by being nowhere near as squeamish as I'd expected. His hands were more careful and confident than those of many students in the medical who did this sort of thing all the time. Gizli yetenek diyoruz. So the three of us were here playing breath all night, Bill asked, pointedly avoiding looking in my direction. Sounds good, Sim said. Can we say I won? No, I said. People must have seen you let the pony lie and they'll catch me for sure. Oh, Sim said. What do we say then? The truth, I pointed at Will. You were at the pony during the excitement, then came here to tell me about it. I nodded to the small table, where a mess of gears, springs, and screws were spread in this array. I showed you the harmony clock I found, and you both gave me advice on how to fix it. Sim seemed disappointed, not very exciting. Simple lies are best, I said, getting to my feet. Thanks again, both of you. This could have gone terribly wrong without the two of you looking out for me. Simon got to his feet and opened the door. We stood as well, but didn't turn to leave. I heard a strange rumor the other night, he said. Anything interesting, I asked. He nodded wearily. I remember hearing that you were done antagonizing a certain powerful member of the nobility. I was surprised that you had finally decided to let sleeping dogs lie. Come on, Will, Simon said. Ambrose isn't sleeping. He's a dog with the throat that deserves to be put down. He more resembles an angry bear, William said, when you seem determined to prod with a burning stick. How can you say that? Sim said hotly. In 2 years, as a scribe, has he ever called you anything other than a filthy shim? And what about the time he almost blinded me by mixing my salts? Quoth will be working the plum bob out of his system for. Will held up his hand and nodded to acknowledge Simon's point. I know this to be true, which is why I let myself be drawn into such foolishness. I merely wish to make a point. He looked at me. You realize you have gone well over the hill concerning this Dana girl, don't you? Tam anlamadım. Okay, sen Dana için aşırı sayılmaya başlayabilecek kadar büyük fedakarlıklar yaptığını fark ediyorsun değil mi? Diyor sanırım. Okay diyoruz. Chapter 21 Peace Work demiş. Kapatmadan önce diyecek bir şey var mı düşünüp geliyorum. Nope. Hadi görüşürüz.